thank you all. Let me just read out, for those of you who don't know the session name, it's Social Mobile Video and the Future of Digital Marketing. So I'd like to, just by a show of hands, see how many of you all in the room are marketeers? About half. How many are agencies? Nobody? How many are publishers? Okay. How many are students? As in you pay people to teach you versus generally show up to conferences. Good. So we have a nice mix over here. So before we get going, let me first ask the first question, which we asked when we got this topic, which is, the question actually says, the future of digital marketing. And it says social, mobile, and video. So first, for definition's sake, what is digital marketing? Because in this context, it's being used in a lot of ways, interchangeably with social in a lot of ways. When you say social, it's sometimes used as what digital is. So can we start with Shantanu on what you think digital marketing really is?
Yeah, so my take on digital marketing is slightly different from what they had to have a finite length for the topic today, and so they added 3 elements: social, mobile, and video. I see digital as a larger, in a macro context, where we're looking at how technology particularly is helping or taking the economy through a series of self-destructions of existing operations, existing ways of doing things, and there are new systems and processes coming in, newer opportunities coming in, which is creating an absolutely different social and business environment. And so if I had to add to this list here, it would be social, mobile, video. We talk about display banner, we talk about data analytics. It's anything to do with technology. Again, we would want to add more than just the advertising piece that it's often digital marketing is restricted to. So we should specifically be looking at how business processes are changing with the use of technology, with the advent of new devices, new ways of doing things. So all-encompassing, yeah, that would be digital marketing for me.
Very much everything summed by Shantanu, but I think 2 things. One is the use of technology to market to your audience, your products. The second is not to shout at them, but to actually engage them in the conversations. I think these are the 2 main things if you have to actually sum up in terms of digital marketing as to how it happens. This pretty much says a lot about what's going to happen, what is happening and what's going to happen in this space.
To me, digital is, a very large word technically, because, a lot of times we get very narrowed down to say digital marketing per se, because to me, digital is about anything that can have data, connected systems, bring a lot of things together, right? In the context of advertising, I would say, most seminars I go to, when you say digital marketing, you're mostly pretty much talking about what advertising can it do and stuff like that, because I think to me it's much larger than that. CRM solutions, data insights, talk about social. How do you take the whole data story together and put stuff together? To me, it's about intelligent communications and how you enable them.
That's great. So intelligent communications. And the reason why I wanted to ask this question first is because I think there's a lot of fad words going on out there, and what's important, especially for you marketeers in the room, and this is some of my advice, is I like to ask this question of agencies that come see me to pitch digital or talk about their digital capabilities, because if they themselves don't understand the power and the breadth that digital can actually have, right, this idea of, if you listen to the definitions, they're quite broad, and they have strong business applicability, not just in marketing or demand gen, but also HR and you mentioned business processes. That's a much broader definition, and that's important because most CMOs need to work with agencies that can take a much more holistic view of the medium to help the business objectives. So that's one. So one of the things that we recently did at IBM was ran a study, and it's the IBM CMO study, and there was one particular factoid from there that I want to pull out. It was a study done with 99 Indian CMOs, so there's a lot of substantial sample size here. It was 1,700 worldwide. And it basically said that CMOs in India are moving towards digital technologies primarily for customer advocacy and loyalty. That was their primary reason to consider digital, a lot of what they've said. So any reaction to that? Are you surprised by that? You want to go ahead and start, Shantanu?
Yeah, so this study actually is very helpful to us as well, Virginia, because we take this, we have some data to prove what we believed all along. And so we have clients who are talking about social media all the time. We do a lot of activity for them there. But in terms of hard-hitting facts or numbers, for instance, one of the, again, figures from the study that you're referring to talks about a 40% increase in loyalty amongst brands who are talking to who are engaging with you on social platforms. So the moment you put it into that context and you look at a niche automobile manufacturer who's got what? Who's got 100,000, 200,000 fans, and the number of vehicles they sell in any given month is in single digit, is less than 1,000. So potentially, most of your consumers are already sitting there. So I would say digital marketing is a big disruptive cycle. I mean, there's this Russian economist, I'll have to take his name again, Nikolai Kondratiev. He spoke about digital marketing. Sorry, he didn't talk about digital marketing. He says that in the macroeconomics, you see long wave transitions. So long wave transitions would be something, an era of disruption, change, and a new order emerging. And these they're long wave because they typically last 50 years. If you're talking about that and looking at digital today, we are probably 20 years into that equation. And this is going to fundamentally change everything that we see or do. An example of that would have been, it is again, it's been led by technology, it's been led by social change. So one of the long-form waves was the effect of the World War and the after effects of it and how it changed the entire social fabric. It was a long process. The simpler to understand example would be in the late 1800s, early 1900s when you had, I'm sorry I'm going away from digital, but you had these steam-powered factories. Everything was run through a steam engine. And then you had the advent of electricity and more efficient machines. The incumbents, the manufacturers who'd already, they had too much riding on the steam engine technology. And so they weren't the ones to adapt, but over time, over the transition, over the 50-year cycle that we saw, steam engine is dead and gone, and it was electricity and electric motors that have taken over manufacturing everywhere. So the next cycle that we are seeing is all to do with IT and infrastructure. We are probably 20 years into it, and the cycle is maybe going to end in 2030, 2035, and by then is when the real change is going to be evident.
So let me just ask a related question to that, which is this idea of technology or IT is not really marketing terms. You wouldn't typically come to a marketing conference, have some agencies on the panel that talk to you about IT. And coming from an IT company myself, I attend a lot of IT conferences. So it's interesting that you all have placed such an emphasis. I mean, all three of you have brought up things like CRM and IT, but your agencies and I'm marketing, what has IT got to do with anything? So, I mean, I'm just curious, and because this concept of technology being brought into the marketing discipline is a relatively new, I mean, we're all creative people, we sit around and ideate, right? Why is technology so important?
So I'll give you a very small example of how IT can change the order of how things are done. And it's nicer to see smaller examples because it's easier to grasp the fundamentals. So for credit card companies or any other company, so to say, getting your existing customers to refer new customers is nothing new. It's existed for maybe the last 50 years. And Reader's Digest would do that very well. They had, and they would do the traditional mailer where you would put out stuff and so on and so forth. But see how you can change that entire efficiency of that process by adding a technology element into it. For American Express, we did a campaign recently where they sent out mailers to existing Platinum Reserve card holders, and there's a card that you need to pay a certain amount of money to get. It's a premium card and so on and so forth. They sent out mailers and had a link. We worked on a LinkedIn API so that the entire process of recommending people to get this card becomes simpler. And so from a DM campaign, which they would say was a huge success, if they'd get maybe 1,000 referrals, we are suddenly talking about sitting on maybe 30,000, 40,000 referrals and still counting. And so amongst agencies, amongst clients, we always talk about the LinkedIn audience is very great. It's very premium, but it costs too much to reach out to them. They don't respond. They're probably looking at it's like social networking for professionals, right? So they're not responding to my banner. They're not clicking there. But here's a case of leveraging technology and getting phenomenal results.
So Deb, what do you think?
So, one more thing about customer advocacy. It is not only to do with actually what your customers thinks about yourself. It's also about actually meeting the needs of the digital natives. Marketers today are somewhere sitting at a cusp where the 15, 16-year-olds are going to be the consumers tomorrow.
Is that what you mean by digital native?
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, these are the people, they are not making the choices by just about going to showrooms and seeing things. They are very much making the choices in terms of going onto social networks, finding about the products, getting to get feedback on what a product launch is all about. Is it good enough? It is bad enough? What are the reviews and stuff like that? So if a brand is not present there talking about itself in that space, then it's going to be difficult for them to actually catch their attention. I think technology plays a very big role out here in terms of making that predisposition before even a customer walks into their showroom. I think that's very important for a marketer coming to think of it. And somewhere I heard about, I was attending the Nielsen conference last week in Delhi, and there was this talk about I think it was from HUL, a person who had attended. And they said, what happens today in HUL is that the marketing heads are actually being asked to have mentors who are at least half their age. It used to be a concept of actually having mentors in the organization who can actually lead you to the path of leadership, who are the seniors, who have gone through that path and done something about it. It's a reverse process happening there right now, because the customers of tomorrow are definitely very different from what you are attending today. So these are the kind of things that come into play when you're talking about customer advocacy in terms of getting a predisposed positive image of what a brand and stuff like that. And that's where this particular process helps a lot.
That's great. So advocacy and digital, anything on that?
See, the way I see this is in sense, if you look at CMOs earlier and CMOs now, CMOs earlier made decisions based on small sample size data. The data size was limited to, that study of that data size was limited to the CMO, probably 3-4 people in the organization. So every time they ran a campaign or created something new, it was pretty much, they did something, whether it worked, didn't work, the analysis of it were all, in a controlled environment. If you look at what digital has done today, right? Digital has suddenly, taken this number through the roof. One is the number of respondents has gone up significantly. When I say respondents, I don't necessarily mean it's a brand survey or anything. You could take simple mechanism like social media, right? In social media, if I have 1 million fans on my page, it's not about, a lot of CMOs think that, 1 million social media fans on my page, great, my boss feels good about me. But the fact is that there are so many insights in that page about what people are saying, not just about brand, it's about product and how do you feed the whole process back into your product cycle, not necessarily from a marketing and packaging cycle. But this whole story of insights is so open and accessible to a whole lot of people. That's when CMOs, I would say, in some senses are saying, this is very important for me. Not just because, I stand exposed if I don't address those segments. And if I do not, address those segments, that because it's open and available, your nearest competition can come, take hold of that entire story and weave it into a story that works for others. So I would see loyalty and this whole story that's coming out is from that perspective more rather than from a single perspective saying, it's always remained important, but it is a lot more open and social now
Okay.
compared to what it was earlier.